Over the last year, we have seen a total transformation of the Xbox brand. More specifically, we have seen a radical change in how they handle their first-party studios and games, with formerly Xbox-only IPs and franchises coming to rival platforms. As Xbox leadership attempts to sell this new initiative to their audience, I become increasingly troubled by some of their statements. I feel Xbox has been spreading a lot of falsehoods as they scramble to not address the elephant in the room, which is of course their struggling console brand. In today's video, I will discuss everything happening with Xbox, the statements they've made, and the issues I have with it. For those unaware of what exactly I'm referring to, here's a quick summary. Starting back in early 2024, we began hearing rumors that many Xbox games would be making their way to other hardware. In February 2024, the movement began with 4 games. Those games were Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, Pentiment, and Grounded. All 4 games were previously console exclusive to Xbox, but were now being spread across PlayStation and Nintendo platforms. At the time, Xbox called this an experiment to see what value they could find. Xbox players were assured that other major games would remain exclusive, but as time has gone on, this experiment has turned into a new way of life. With each passing month, we have seen more and more games losing Xbox exclusivity. We had Indiana Jones announced for PS5 before the previously Xbox exclusive game was even released. We've had The Outer Worlds 2, originally announced as an Xbox console exclusive, now coming to PS5 on day 1. And it was recently announced that Forza Horizon 5 will be coming to PlayStation, bringing the Forza franchise to a console other than Xbox for the first time ever. CEO of Microsoft Gaming Phil Spencer has said there is, quote, no red lines over any game in their catalog, meaning nothing is off the table. So although it is not official yet, it is only a matter of time before we see Halo and Gears of War gracing PlayStation and Nintendo platforms. What was once unthinkable is now our reality, with Xbox acting as a third-party publisher more than a console manufacturer. So the question is, why exactly is Xbox doing this? Well, there's a lot of reasons for this third-party pivot, some of which are obvious, such as the declining sales of Xbox Series X and S. The first 4-year sales of Series X and S are currently trailing behind its predecessor, Xbox One. Considering the Xbox One also trailed its predecessor by a large margin, this is now 2 console generations in a row seeing steady decline. That is obviously highly concerning for Microsoft and has played a major factor in their third-party moves, but the console sales are actually not the whole story. In 2020, Microsoft acquired ZeniMax, which includes Bethesda and all of their subsidiaries. At the time of this acquisition, it was believed all future Bethesda games would be Xbox console exclusives. And for a time, they were, with games like Starfield and Redfall not releasing on PlayStation. A few years later, Microsoft made an even bigger acquisition, buying Activision Blizzard King. This purchase meant massive franchises like Call of Duty now fell under the Xbox label, and immediately gamers wondered whether this meant Call of Duty would be held off rival platforms. This led to a huge legal battle, which ultimately ended up with Microsoft and PlayStation reaching an agreement that keeps Call of Duty coming to PlayStation for the foreseeable future. While the legal battle certainly played a role, I don't think Microsoft could have ever realistically made Call of Duty an exclusive. The franchise is simply too large to make a move like that. They would be giving up billions of dollars that the game generates on PlayStation platforms every year. It actually reminds me of an even older Microsoft acquisition, when they bought Mojang and Minecraft in 2014. Microsoft vowed to not make Minecraft exclusive, even in a time when console exclusives were far stricter than they are now. But in the case of both Minecraft and Call of Duty, some games are just simply too big to take away from other platforms. The potential console sales you may get from making a game of this caliber exclusive would have to be otherworldly to even come close to making up for the lost revenue. So this move to acquire Activision, and specifically Call of Duty, put Microsoft in a position where they were going to publish a massive AAA game on PlayStation day 1 for the first time. And I don't doubt that when they saw that first Call of Duty on PlayStation check hit, it made them rethink some things. Additionally, this Activision purchase put a lot of extra eyes on Xbox from Microsoft higher-ups. The Activision Blizzard deal was the biggest acquisition in Microsoft's history, being purchased for a staggering $70 billion. Microsoft has bought countless companies throughout their existence, so for an Xbox-based acquisition to top the list, it put a whole new kind of pressure on the brand. Suddenly, being third place in the console space was a lot more drastic with a $70 billion acquisition hanging over their heads. This added pressure forced Xbox to look elsewhere to bring in extra revenue, leading us to the present day, where an Xbox exclusive game is seemingly a thing of the past. Another reason why Xbox is scrambling to pick up extra revenue revenue is because of Game Pass. As I'm sure most of you know, Game Pass is Xbox's subscription service that grants players access to hundreds of games. Part of what makes Game Pass unique is the amount of games available on the same day they release for purchase. This means Game Pass subscribers often land brand new $70 video games on day one. It's an incredible deal, probably the best deal in gaming. And while Game Pass has been very successful for Xbox, it has had an adverse effect on their software sales. Many Xbox players simply don't buy games anymore, satisfied by their Game Pass subscriptions, and I really can't blame them for that. But from Microsoft's perspective, it's hard to sustain your first-party teams through Game Pass subscriptions alone. Once they added massive teams like Bethesda and Activision Blizzard, it became impossible. Releasing their games on not only PC, but also PlayStation and Nintendo became essential to offset the lost sales from the millions of people on Xbox who understandably don't purchase games anymore. I think this is a very underrated part of the story that not many seem to talk about. Xbox's main two initiatives over the last 5 years have been Game Pass and acquisitions, but these are two things that actually don't mix very well at all. Combine that with the declining console sales, and it was inevitable that Microsoft would find themselves in this position. So now that you're all caught up, I want to talk about some recent statements Xbox has made as they've attempted to sell their audience on this new third-party reality. Xbox is in a very weird position. They are acting like a third-party publisher, yet are still very much invested in the console space. We've never really seen something like this before. Think back to Sega. When Sega discontinued the Dreamcast and began publishing games on other platforms, they left the console space entirely. But Xbox is still hanging on, claiming they are still dedicated to their hardware. This is a very hard thing to sell. Why would someone buy an Xbox when there is no inherent value there that can't be found elsewhere? Phil Spencer has put out many different statements on this topic, and I want to dissect some of them today. Right off the bat, I'll acknowledge that Phil is in a tough spot, and many of these statements are probably coming from people above him at Microsoft. But at the end of the day, he is the face of Xbox and the one saying these things publicly, so the criticism falls on him. The first thing I want to talk about is the idea that exclusives don't matter and that exclusives don't sell Xbox consoles. Phil has stated this on multiple occasions. Most recently, he told Destin Legary that keeping games off rival platforms simply doesn't work for Xbox. Phil has also said that exclusivity in games is changing, with it not being as relevant as it used to be. There is some truth to these statements. Console exclusivity has gotten a bit looser than prior years. Sony, for example, now publishes MLB The Show on Xbox and Nintendo platforms. Also, PlayStation games have been receiving PC ports for the last several years. But aside from these case-by-case examples, console exclusivity is still very much a thing, and definitely plays a role when deciding what console to purchase. To act like that's not happening is just simply false. And while console exclusivity certainly has changed, there is only one platform holder releasing all of their games on direct competitors, and that's Xbox. And really, when you look at Xbox's history, their successes and struggles often directly align with how their exclusive games were doing. Xbox's first-party catalog was incredibly strong throughout the Xbox 360 era when they found their most success. But throughout the Xbox One era, their first-party games struggled to reach that same level of quality and consistency. Am I supposed to believe it's a coincidence that the Xbox brand's success or lack thereof has perfectly aligned with the success of their exclusive games? Either way, the big question for me becomes, if console exclusives no longer exist, then what is my incentive to buy an Xbox? Well, Phil Spencer claims they will convince people through the hardware itself. He said, and I quote, "We want our hardware to win based on the hardware capabilities that we have." I find this quote to be, frankly, laughable. I would argue the hardware itself is the least important it has ever been in the history of console gaming. Long gone are the days of the power race where we anxiously awaited what console would have the most power or never before seen features. Nowadays, PlayStation and Xbox consoles are nearly indistinguishable at a hardware level. New consoles aren't able to have the same technical leaps as they used to, and the upgrades are going to continue becoming even more marginal as time goes on. To act like you are going to sell new Xbox consoles off hardware alone is just flat out wrong. The final statement regarding hardware that I wanted to point to is Phil's quote that console gaming is not growing. It really bothered me to see him say this when, once again, it doesn't appear to be true. It was recently reported that PS5 sales are pacing ahead of PS4 sales. This is despite the fact that the PS5 is significantly more expensive and has yet to receive any kind of price cut. If that's not growth, then what is? I cannot tell you how many times I see people saying that console gaming is dying or not doing well. Having that narrative out there harms the entire gaming industry. But the truth is, console gaming doesn't seem to be slowing down, and it certainly isn't dying, only Xbox consoles are. I would like to see Phil be a little more hesitant to say these kinds of things in the future. I understand the position he and Xbox are in, but spreading this kind of narrative is not healthy for the industry. Finally, I want to talk about the impact this initiative has had on the Xbox customer. It seems to me like they are the unfortunate biggest losers here. Every other platform gets to play their own exclusive games alongside every Xbox game, while Xbox players are left with nothing to call their own. It's a horrible position to be put in, especially when this was not the plan at the start of the series generation. Despite this, I see some Xbox fans online celebrating and even gloating that PlayStation players are spending so much time playing Xbox games. I really don't understand that mindset. Now, if you're a fan of Xbox games specifically, then I do get it. Having Xbox games on more platforms means more money is coming in and the games can get bigger budgets and theoretically get better. But for an Xbox console fan, I don't understand how this move to a third party can be met with anything but pure disdain. It just seems incredibly unfair to me that millions bought an Xbox Series console with the impression they would need it to play games like Halo, Gears, Fable, Starfield, Indiana Jones, or whatever else, and they got it rug pulled from under them. Again, these things do happen, such as with Sega, but like I said before, that was a case where the company dropped consoles entirely. Xbox, on the other hand, is trying to play both sides, and I find that to be extremely unfair to their audience. As we move into this new era of Xbox, the goal is clear. They want Xbox games to be played anywhere, whether that is an Xbox console, a PC, a phone, or even rival platforms. And honestly, that puts them in a pretty powerful position. Don't get it twisted. Despite everything I've talked about today, the Xbox brand is not going anywhere. Xbox is going to become one of the biggest third-party publishers in the world. They have all of Bethesda, they have Call of Duty and the rest of Activision Blizzard, and once you throw all of their own big franchises into the mix, like Halo, Forza, and Gears, there is almost no other company that can compete with that. The only real question becomes how long Xbox tries to stick around the console space. For the time being, Xbox has already confirmed a next-generation console and a portable device are in the works. I will be incredibly interested to see how those consoles perform once they release in the coming years. It will actually be a pretty insightful moment for the industry. Can a device that will have literally zero exclusive games actually sell? My guess is no, but only time will tell. As Xbox continues their transition into this new era, I just hope they will start to show a little more respect to their audience by being more truthful about their intentions and future. What do you think of Xbox's new third-party initiative? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.